Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello and welcome to a shortened week because of the 3-day Labor Day weekend. Hope you had a good labor-free weekend. A lot of fun. And welcome to Tuesday, September 4th. The first day of the Democratic National Convention. Oh, be still my heart. My sister joins us from St. Louis. Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. I just, I couldn't bear to watch the Republican convention, and I really ain't much more up for watching the Democrats.
I have to agree.
I mean, I just hate them. I hate these things. The better part about watching the Democrats is at least as you listen to people talk, you're not
you don't want to vomit.
Yeah, you're not cringing or making sure your passport's in order or whatever. But it's yeah.
There's no point to them anymore. I mean, when we were young, they were actually pretty damn exciting.
Oh, I thought they were. I used to just love them.
Tedium.
Yeah, but to me it was fascinating. I used to love watching conventions. And, man, it's just... You're right, everything's done, so all it is to see which party, how they'll, define themselves in this and that and blah, 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 and who's on first and who. I can't bear it. Who cares? But I have to watch.
Of course.
A bit. I have to see this keynoter tonight. This Julian Cruz? No, Castro.
Yeah.
Castro. Castro's given the keynote. I mean, isn't that just typical Democratic convention?
Those commies.
Really? Castro gives keynote at Dem convention. That is an absolutely true headline. Oh, speaking of headlines, and I forgot to get it out of the paper, our newspaper, I kept thinking, this can't really have happened. Could I be, is there something I'm not getting? And I didn't cut it out, dang it. It said something to the effect of Hillary Clinton, blah, 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 in Asian nations. Listen, and it was a big headline. Listen to how Asian was spelled. A-S-E-A-N.
Oh, great.
Not just a little typo. It was a big, big typo.
In big black headline letters.
A-S-E-A-N. And then I thought, is there like an organization I don't know of? Like the Asean nations?
It couldn't be.
Well, I don't know. I actually went looking in the body of I was sort of skimming the body of the article, and I kept seeing Asian, A-S-I-A-N, and then, but big black letter, A-S-E-A-N. How do you... I don't know. And I was thinking maybe did a spell check do that? Because spell check can do some bizarre things, where it gets it wrong. Okay. Because that's not even a word, I don't think.
It's not a word. They didn't spell check their headlines.
I don't know. I'll tell you, just one more indication of the decline, if not death spiral, of Western civilization. So, can I talk about Paul Ryan for a little bit here?
You mean the liar?
Yeah, I do mean the liar.
He's doing an awful lot of backpedaling.
When somebody... his lies have been particularly astonishing because, they're just so blatant. And, making the assumption that nobody listening, has a brain in their head and any memory of what he has done in his political career. It's fascinating. But
Or because, none of us know what a world record time in marathons is.
Right. Okay, well, I got to tell you, because that's exactly where I'm heading, because the marathon thing I find most fascinating because it's emblematic of pretty serious character flaw here that I think is shared by a lot of people with the egos required to play the political game at a high level. And that he was asked, I hear you ran a marathon. Oh, yeah, says he. In fact, when asked his times, here's a direct quote, under 3, high 2s. I had a 2 hour and 50 something marathon. That's what he said just a few days ago, that he ran a marathon in 2 hours and 50 some minutes. Well,
no, he didn't.
Not even close. I mean, the thing is, anyone who does know about...
Well, it's close if you add like a minute and a half.
No. If you add an hour and a half.
I mean, an hour and a half. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, this perked up the ears of a lot of marathoners, and they thought, wow. And Runner's World said, well, all marathon times are... Recorded. Let's check this out. That's pretty impressive. So they checked it out. And I believe it was 4 hours and what is it? I mean, it was beyond belief how he just flat out lied, making himself a relatively...
He was off by about an hour and a half somewhere.
I think so. He made himself essentially sort of an elite runner, as opposed to the par for the course every day.
And as even Matt Lauer pointed out this morning, there is nobody that finishes a marathon that doesn't know their time.
That is true. Doesn't know their time, and also, if you ran it under 3, that's huge.
Yeah, there's headlines and stuff.
Unbelievable. And here's what he said, under 3, high 2s. Okay, I don't know what that says about something that,
He's also retracting the Obama closed the factories.
Yeah. But I don't know if you've heard this one, and this was all just to get to this. I got this out of the New Yorker. Did you see this? Allow me. In a dramatic narrative that could upstage this week's Democratic National Convention, Representative Paul Ryan gave reporters today a detailed account of the fateful day he killed Osama bin Laden. This is how I can tell if Susan's listening.
What?
Susan! You're supposed to laugh.
I'm sitting here trying to figure it out.
What do you mean? I just said he gave reporters a detailed account of the fateful day that he killed Osama bin Laden. Let me go on if you're having trouble. Ryan said that he was revealing his role as the trigger man who felled the al-Qaeda leader.
Well, this is The Onion.
To, quote, set the record straight, explaining that he had remained silent about his mission until now because, quote, I don't like to brag. I continue. The Republican vice presidential nominee painted a portrait of a Paul Ryan few know, a man who trained for missions with SEAL Team 6 while somehow finding time to cut key provisions of Medicare. The Wisconsin congressman said he was doing sit-ups in the House of Representative cloakroom when he got the call to deploy for his mission to Abbottabad, and hours later found himself face-to-face with the world's most wanted man. Osama got one look at me and he ran like a bat out of hell, Ryan said. It's times like that I'm glad I can run 100 meters in 9.58 seconds. As for the perfect shot between the eyes that nailed bin Laden, Ryan called it just another day at the office, guys. You don't want to get too full of yourself, Ryan said, because of a thing like this. I had a job to do, and I did it. It was very satisfying to see all my SEAL training come together. It was great practice for the day I got Gaddafi. That actually is not the Onion. That was in the New Yorker, the Borowitz report. Ryan gives detailed account of the day he killed bin Laden. Well, you know, when you start becoming a joke like that.
For lying, it's not good.
No. It's not good. And what's...
But that, you know, well...
I mean, now everything he says will be parsed, and I mean, if you're right, he spends all his time trying to explain what he had said when what he had said was a lie. Not good.
Right, it's not good, and well, it was interesting. There was an interesting editorial this morning in my paper. Guess who this is speaking about the inherent danger and the growth of political parties. In the course of time, political parties will become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. Who would you say that is?
Well, we got to go back some time because we don't talk that way anymore, that eloquently. You know, that in that verbiage,
right.
We got to go back to Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, you got to go back farther than that. That was the George Washington's farewell address.
Oh, all right.
And both he and Madison warned that you didn't want large parties because they would inevitably pull to the extremes instead of uniting.
Well, we did not heed this advice. I mean, we didn't heed the advice of a lot of our presidents who warned us about things that they could see in the future if we didn't pay attention. And I'm thinking of Eisenhower and his warning about the military-industrial complex sort of taking things over, too, taking our politics over. And I can't remember where I read it today, but I remember reading that if you think of somebody like Eisenhower, an 8-term Republican president, he...
A 2-term, not an 8-term.
Oh, I'm not... So, okay, you're right. 8 years.
8 years, two terms.
2 terms, and not a governor, a president.
Right.
Jeez, where's my head?
General.
General and a president. He, Susan, probably did more government spending than he built.
He built the interstate highway system.
Thank you very much. He saw, and he knew, because he was a general, the importance of infrastructure for commerce, for all kinds of things. But you had to have this strong infrastructure. And so he, put a gazillion people to work. And this was the biggest federal spending, and in alliance with the states, and he built this, what we now know as the Interstate Highway Network that did not exist, and by doing so, he changed this country completely. I mean, this is what created, well, I hate to say it, suburbs. This is what everything that has happened as a result.
It's destroyed the railroads. It's done a lot of wonderful things. It's had a lot of unintended consequences.
But all I want to say is the Republicans.
It was the Republican policy. I agree. You wouldn't be able to, these people wouldn't be able to get elected. Although, speaking of Republicans, the Reagan article was very interesting.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and for those who might have missed it, it's fascinating. I have it here. Do you have it?
Well, I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay, I have it in front of me, just so I can get some direct quotes here, but this is a piece by an author who spent years fighting the federal government through the Freedom of Information Act to get access to some FBI files. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have had that kind of a struggle. Journalists have had that struggle. But he finally got what he wanted. And these were files about Ronald Reagan. And the files paint just the most interesting. I mean, I just find it incredibly interesting. Ronald Reagan, who is the avatar of the current Republican crop, even though many of his policies would be considered outrageously liberal to this current group. Ronald Reagan, who was for small government, right?
Keeping the government out of your
affairs,
business.
And also not, he said, you don't turn to government for help. He said, famously the scariest 7 words or whatever it was in the English languages, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Right.
Something to that effect. Well, so when the author is Seth Rosenfeld, when he got into the papers that he was finally allowed to see, he uncovered all kinds of stuff in which Reagan, before he was president, used the resources as a private citizen, used the resources of the FBI and his pal J. Edgar Hoover to take care of total personal family business. What's fascinating to me is, first of all, I think it's generally known that Reagan had in Hollywood been a conduit to the FBI about all the commies in Hollywood. I think that was generally known, wasn't it?
Or
you didn't know it that he was.
But I didn't pay all that much attention to it. His name was not on my.
Okay, he was a flat-out informer. Ronald Reagan was an informer.
When he was president of the Screen Actors Guild, he was just telling on everybody.
Right. So here he appeared to be the leader of this, group. In fact, he was ratting out his union.
Frequently with no evidence.
Because of the McCarthyite aspect. What happened is the FBI came to Reagan's house in 1946. And that's when they recruited him. And they told him that you got commies in the Screen Actors Guild. And we've got to ferret them out. I mean, this is important to the nation's security. And Reagan has written about this. He said, I must confess they opened my eyes to a good many things. So he began to do this secret. He was an FBI mole who happened to be the head of the Screen Actors Guild. And you wonder about all those wonderful actors and screenwriters who got blackballed during the McCarthy era. Ronnie Reagan played a big part in giving over lists to the FBI. So, and as Susan says, I mean, it didn't take much. He could have just heard at a cocktail party that so-and-so said, and bang-o, he's reporting him. One of the FBI papers that this author gets is a memo in which one of the officials, the FBI officials, writes of Reagan, in every instance he has been cooperative. So he's totally in the thrall of the FBI. And J. Edgar Hoover was obviously, very happy with him. He was a pal. So Shoot ahead to 1960. Ronald Reagan is divorced from, what's her name? Wyman. What's that actress's name he was married to?
Jane Wyman.
Jane Wyman. He's already divorced from her. He's already married to Nancy. He has, in 1960, 2 older children, as you know. Michael, his son, that he and Wyman adopted, and Maureen, their biological daughter. And apparently Maureen, who in 1960 was 19 years old, I believe. And she was, like a lot of 19-year-olds, she was rebellious, she was troubled, she was not making her parents happy. She was, in fact, shacked up in Washington, D.C. with a married police officer, much older than she. She had dropped out of college and took up with this married guy and was living with him. So, get this. Here's one of what the memos revealed. According to an FBI memo, quote, Jane Wyman wishes to come to Washington to perhaps straighten out her daughter, get her back to L.A., but before doing so desires to know the following. 1. Is the man in question employed as an officer of the Metropolitan Police Department? 2. Is he married? 3. Is his wife in an institution? And what are the details? And 4. Any other information which might be discreetly developed concerning the relationship. This is the FBI.
Right.
But, so...
Functioning like a private
detective agency for Jane Wyman and Ronald Reagan, who apparently don't have much of a relationship with this daughter. They come across... The FBI actually starts doing some legwork on this. And here's one of the quotes from one of their reports. Maureen was the victim of a broken home, and because she had resided in boarding schools and been away from parental contact so much of her life, she was an insecure individual who could not make up her mind and did not achieve goals set by herself or others. So they're describing a lost soul who was shipped out.
Yeah, they're describing a totally neglected child.
Right. And then one of the memos says there does not appear to be any FBI jurisdiction here. And that was sent up to J. Edgar, who said, I don't give a damn, let's do this. I decide whether there's jurisdiction. Hoover said, we'll go do this. And so an FBI agent posing as an insurance salesman, shows up at Maureen's house. There were calls to her neighbors, calls to police sources. There was interviews with the maid who cleaned up. I mean, they went out and did all this work. And what they found out was that, yes, young, screwed-up Maureen was living with a married police officer. And so Jane Wyman got what she wanted. Ronald Reagan got what she wanted. Guess what? They didn't do anything with the information. Maybe Jane Wyman finally went to talk to her daughter, but to no avail. Because what ended up happening is this guy left his wife and married Maureen.
And supposedly beat her. Okay, so
they were married in like 1960. They were divorced by 62. And here's I thought, and quite clearly you see again, that Reagan and Wyman, in this case, had really no contact with their daughter. So your daughter gets married. You're not happy with who she's marrying, but whatever. The daughter has written in a book much later. This is 1989, she writes this. I still have not spoken openly to my parents about the details of what I went through. again, well, that says something just about their screw.
Well, I just always think it's remarkable that these people that, lord over we common folk, their exalted family values, have absolutely none.
Right.
I mean, I'm the one that's making dinner and sitting down with my kids every night when they're growing up. They aren't.
Nope. Okay, so that's one of the stories. Here's what the FBI files also showed. Okay, now we're up to 1965. And Reagan is now, he's running for governor of California. And the FBI is hot on the trail of Joseph Bonanno, better known as Joey Bananas. One of the biggie mafia dons. And Joey Bananas owned a home in Arizona. Lo and behold, FBI agents, because they're tailing Joey Bananas and all his family, make a discovery. Here, again, from the FBI files. The son of Ronald Reagan is associating with the son of Joey Bonanno. Now, that's Michael Reagan. Again, the son, who's now what? A conservative radio talk show host? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was best buddies with Bonanno's son, and it said that the FBI said the teenagers bonded over a shared love of fast cars and acting tough. Now, Reagan Jr., Michael Reagan's friend, had been arrested in connection with the beating of a Scottsdale, Arizona coffee shop manager. Following routine procedure, FBI agents in Phoenix asked agents in L.A. to interview Ronald Reagan for any information he might have from his son, because of his son's close relationship with the son of the guy they wanted to nab. J. Edgar blocked them from talking to Reagan because he did not want in any way that something should leak out and embarrass Reagan and hurt his political chances. But okay, so that's all the story was. The story is simply that we don't have a clue until some reporter, spends years
in court.
In court trying to get information. Now, you could say none of this information is
Why
earth-shattering.
an independent press is important.
None of this information is particularly, astonishing, maybe. Them that's got power and connections use the power and connections.
And think it's just fine for them. It's all the rest of us that can't.
It's all
have
the
it.
rest that you should not rely on government. Meanwhile, I got a daughter who's acting up. I'm calling J. Edgar Hoover.
Ronnie, call Jay.
Jeez. Unbelievable. All right, so that's just a little sort of historical tidbit that was in Sunday's New York Times, I guess. The guy who, the journalist is writing a book. It was maybe some of a little hint of what is coming in his book. When information is ferreted out, all kinds of stuff becomes apparent. Unbelievable. All right, we better take a break. If there's anything in particular you guys want to talk about that Susan and I have not touched on yet, and that's a safe bet, actually, let us know. Lynn at PGH City Paper, or call 412-316. Oh, why am I doing this? Because that guy's going to do it as soon as I go to the break. Giving the phone number, right? Jess? Or isn't he?
No, not.
Oh, he's not? Well, then let me give it. 412-316-3381.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, the History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. This week, get 50% off tickets to the Pittsburgh Irish Festival. bergbargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. bergbargains.com.
All righty. Somewhere I was reading about the Pittsburgh Literacy Council in the paper over the weekend, some story, can't remember what, but I thought, oh yeah, I know those folks. Good people. And it's hugely dependent on volunteers, which is why I bring it up every now and then. They're short on volunteers. So much of the work they do, helping people learn how to read or learn how to read and comprehend better, has to be done one-on-one. And that requires a dedicated group of volunteers willing to take the time to do that for another person, change their lives, open up their opportunities. And that could be you. If you simply contact the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council, tell them you're interested, not sure, but you're interested, they'll, give you all the information and answer all the questions that you may have. They will train you how to teach. They don't expect you to have a clue what to do. They expect you to come with an open heart and a desire to do some good work. And here's a phone number you could call, 412-393-7600, 393-7600. As you know, Tom Sokolowski, upon hearing about this, got right on it. And so he's intending to do this. That's the reaction I want from more of you. You can also go to the website, gplc.org, Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council.org. Change a life, including your own.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor, or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Hey, welcome back. My sister Susan is with us in St. Louis. Feels like St. Louis here today, Susan. It's so humid.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Barack Obama yesterday, and I was in my car driving, and I thought, I remember 4 years ago, my greatest fear. I couldn't say it. I didn't want to. I'm sure a lot of people felt this way. I was so afraid that, and I don't want to say it now, that he would...
Yes, I know what you were afraid of. I'm still afraid.
Right, that he would be targeted. And I thought, wow, he made it for 4 years, but now he's asking for 4 more. And then you know what I thought? I thought he will never, until the day he dies, he will never be able to completely, ever, lead a normal life or let down his guard. Ever.
No. But,
and I'm thinking about what kind of sacrifice is that?
None of them can. They all have protection.
Right.
There's a kook out there for everybody.
There's more kooks for him.
And we've armed them all, so,
Well, right there, and his family, too. It is, it's hard to imagine the way they now have, the way they live. And obviously, a lot of the way they live, you and I might want to try. The trappings of it and the opportunities of it, and yet it ain't a normal life, and it's a life that has to constantly be concerned about security. And so there would be a constant in the back of your head that someone wants to kill me. A lot of people. Jeez.
Yeah.
Awful.
But he knew what he was doing when he signed up for it.
I know, but... Okay, so Susan and I want to, at this time, take a little moment to tell you that we were just beside ourselves on yesterday when we opened our New York Times and happened to get to the editorial page, and the lead editorial is titled "Healthcare Where You Work." And it's a pretty big editorial talking about a little hospital in a small city that appears to be doing something different and something that works. And the reason Susan and I were so blown away by it is that hospital is the hospital we were born in. That hospital is the hospital that our father served as chairman of the board. And that is a hospital that we, as our family, has a very close relationship with in many different ways. And there it was, Bellin Health, this little hospital in Green Bay.
178-bed regional hospital.
And, I mean, it's been central to our lives because of my father's, relationship with it, and has continued to be. So I think it's just fascinating that, okay, here we know the people who run that hospital. We know them to be good people. But the New York Times is saying, look at what they're doing there. Look at what this one little place, the thinking outside the box and just doing things right, is doing. The fact of the matter is that Bellin Little Hospital in Green Bay, Wisconsin, is cutting costs incredibly and maintaining a higher quality of care than the vast majority of hospitals in the country.
It's in the top 10 hospitals in the country in terms of
outcome,
good results with their patients. Not being rehospitalized,
right.
Not getting infections, that sort of stuff.
Right, not getting infections, not having to come back, not having complications, blah, blah, blah. This little teeny hospital, not UPMC, this little hospital in Green Bay is doing everything right, or doing a lot more right. And it ranks at the very tippy top of all the hospitals in the country in holding down costs, especially in the last 2 years of life. So they don't do all this crapola where you add on and cost. This is part of doing it right, and part of what else they do, which is what the New York Times mostly, I think, wanted to tout, is that while cutting costs and having high-quality outcomes, they are, listen to this. You tell me if this sounds like any hospital around here. Bellin's approach puts a lot of emphasis on getting medical attention promptly. Patients are guaranteed access to whatever level of care they need on the day that they call. Jess is laughing.
What's that noise?
That's Jess laughing. Is that, or is there something else you're hearing?
I'm hearing something else, but go ahead.
Okay. Can you imagine a hospital around here? Okay, you're nervous about something, you call the hospital and say, I really have this thing and I want to, and around here they say, well, the doctor can see you in November. No. Bellin makes a point of getting you in immediately. They use nurse practitioners a lot. They use, they can, and all this kind of stuff. Their own employees are encouraged to use these clinics that have been established in retail stores in town. They put up healthcare clinics at workplaces so that a lot of people who work in the Green Bay area, if they need a doctor, it's right there where they work, affiliated with the hospital. And understand that this hospital's doing all of this while reducing the costs. Now what? So here's what I don't get. Then what's wrong with these other hospitals? What
they
is
just
it?
haven't hit on this scheme. I mean, it hasn't occurred to them to place little clinics where the patients are. That locating these things in large work populations saves time and money, and you get to the patient before the patient gets sick. You keep them out of the more expensive emergency room. It's simply looking at what causes the costs and then attacking that issue. Everybody knows that emergency rooms are the biggest, one of the single biggest. Using an emergency room as a primary care location, it's inappropriate,
right,
and extremely expensive.
Right.
They stopped that.
And
even for their own employees who work in that hospital, they send them to Shopko.
Shopko is like Kmart; it's a regional.
But into these,
clinics,
into these Kmart or Target-like stores, they've put urgent care centers,
mm-hmm.
and people go to them. They encourage their own employees to go to them because they pay 100% of the cost.
The hospital pays for its employees 100% of the cost, of course. Also, you talk to employers in the Green Bay area, and they're raving about the programs that Bellin provides them because their costs have gone way, way down.
The shipyards in Marinette to build all the Coast Guard cutters that we've gone and seen ships launched from,
mm-hmm.
They have increased their workforce and dropped their medical costs $2 million since they partnered with this hospital.
Increased their workforce, yet decreased by millions the cost of providing health care.
And they did it by putting a trailer on premises and staffing it with Bellin personnel. So if you're sick there, you go right in. You go in that day, you get treated, you get your antibiotic. Guess what happens? Everybody else in the place doesn't get sick. It's just little things. Think about it.
The vocational school there, the big one, Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, says that Bellin Hospital has slowed the growth rate in the college's healthcare spending so much that it is now saving about $500,000 a year, which now can be used to teach, to do what they're there for. $500,000 a year. And on and on and on. They have all these companies. So, Susan and I are just...
First of all, I'm reading this, and I'm just proud as punch.
I know. We're so proud because this was...
These are our friends. We know these people.
These are all the people that we adore. And then, in fact, our family still does business at Bellin. And I'm just... Why, the CEO and I were in high school together, old George Kerwin.
Well, and his wife and I were in high school together.
That's right. It's a small town thing, but these guys in Little Green Bay. And we all had the same thought, gee, we wish our dad could have
seen this.
Seen this.
But in fact, this is the hospital at which my in which my father had our father had his final illness, and you could not have asked for better care.
No. So, why, I've had my stomach pumped at Bellin Hospital.
And that's the hospital that when I refused to go to school in first grade that I got slammed into to have an upper and lower GI series to see what was wrong with me.
Yeah, you just didn't want to go to school.
I didn't want to go to school.
And this is the hospital where I was brought a bloody pulp near death's door when I rode my bike through the window.
First through a garage window.
Yeah, so Bellin Hospital, I mean, I was born there. They saved my life once, actually twice, because the stomach pump thing was definitely a life-saving thing, too. So I love this place. I do. So we're just, if any of you saw that, that's family. That's family. Bellin Health Systems. And that is a real not-for-profit health care system. You know, you never get the sense with Bellin Hospital that people are, you know, that there's an empire there and that people are making way, way, way too much money like you do around here. They never take their eyes.
Well, there's some people that are doing pretty well that work.
No, but I'm just saying they never take their eyes off the mission.
But no, they are all extremely dedicated people. It's interesting because one of the younger, a woman our age, younger than us actually, much younger than us, who has befriended our mother,
plays golf with
was in St. Louis about 6 weeks ago and to meet with hospital officials here, and I was going, why are you here, Andrea? What's going on? And she goes, oh, well, we teach a lot of these places how we run our services. So, in fact, people do know about them, and they are now spreading out across the country, spreading this message of how you do this.
Well, Bellin, according to this thing, that they have been chosen by the federal government to test a new Medicare payment system that rewards providers if they reduce spending, but also penalizes them if costs go up. Bellin quite willing to say, oh, yeah, give that to us because we're not going to get penalized. No way. And let's see if we can continue to do this because these are these issues that need to be dealt with. And people with good intentions and sticking to the mission of what a hospital is to be can make things work. And maybe the problem is you can do it on this smaller scale, but you can't do it. The bigger you get, the more you...
Well, I think maybe the model was more obvious in a state that looks like Wisconsin, where you don't have a ton of large urban centers. Even your biggest urban centers are fairly small and surrounded by much smaller rural communities. And it started them on this thing where they put these little satellite clinic buildings around this surrounding area because people couldn't get into the city for the hospital. And that and they saw that model work and they extrapolated. I mean, they were just open to seeing what they saw work and taking it to its furthest extent. That was the man that they didn't mention in that article. That's the guy that heads the hospital. That's George Kerwin, and he figured this out. And they've got a good board that supported them. I mean, it's all very, very interesting. The government would do well to use them as a model.
Right. We're proud.
We're proud.
We're proud. Okay. Well, that's enough of we sound now like, did I quote?
Like awful parents.
No,
my child has the lead.
And I was thinking of Paul Ryan saying, I don't like to brag. Okay, Noreen writes...
Yeah, but we aren't lying.
No, Noreen writes, Lynn, a thought crossed my mind while you were talking about the president's security. The conservatives are all about keeping costs down and having less government interference. So if, heaven forbid, Romney would get elected, the cost of protecting his family would be astronomical. I mean, you got the wife, you got the 5 sons, their wives, grandchildren. I say to the Republicans, save money! Elect Obama!
Boy, that's not even counting all the Romneys that are still in Mexico.
Yeah, all them Mexican Romneys. Who
You'll
fled...
drag a few of those up to appeal to the Hispanic vote.
Who fled a revolution. What's funny is every time he mentions the Mexican Romneys, he doesn't say why they were in Mexico. They were in Mexico because they had to get the hell out of the United States because...
they were polygamous.
Right, because you couldn't have 5 wives. Oh, God, you can't make this stuff up. I got to take a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Pittsburgh City Paper is now available on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com to read this week's digital issue or search for restaurants, bars, concerts, events, and movies on any portable device. Plus blog, Lynn Cullen, City Guide, CPTV, and Best of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com. Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay, so there was this other article in the paper that I saw, and I wouldn't have been interested in it, but I had to because Jess once brought this thing in. It's about a magazine. Have you ever heard of a magazine, Susan, called Garden and Gun?
Sorry.
Didn't you bring that in, Garden and Gun?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jess one day brought in Garden and Gun. I said...
Is that what teaches you how to shoot the bunnies that are eating your garden?
I don't know. Ever heard of such a not ridiculous Garden and Gun? And there's this big story about it in the business section of the New York Times about how it had a rocky start, but now it appears that it is just taking off. Magazines are having such trouble staying alive, and Garden and Gun has found a sweet spot. The fact that it's a Southern, it's mostly about the South. Mm-hmm. But Jess had it, and Jess said, I love this magazine.
I do.
She loves it. She says it's full of good writing and great stuff. And there it is, Garden and Gun. Don't ask me. But Jess, here, I brought that in actually for you, the big, because that's her baby, Garden and Gun. Going hot, getting hot. So, did you see this, probably the only liberal cardinal left died?
Yes.
Carlo Maria Martini. 85 years old. He was buried yesterday. I don't know if the Pope went. Apparently, he was speaking. He was very powerful in his day, was generally thought might be a pope. But then the church lurched to the right. And the BBC reported this, that I guess just a few weeks before he died, he gave an interview to some Italian newspaper. And he had lots of stuff to say that you'll never hear coming out of. Here's what he says. Our culture has grown old. Our churches are big and empty. And the church bureaucracy continues to rise up. Our religious rites and the vestments we wear are pompous. The child sex scandals oblige us to undertake a journey of transformation. He did not agree with the church about condoms, about birth control. He says the church's prohibitions on many things have driven many faithful people away. And he says condoms in some situations are definitely a lesser evil. He's talking specifically about fighting AIDS. And he was constantly calling on the church to recognize that it had gone off on the wrong path and needed to pull back and be where the people are. But, of course, no one's listening. Now he's dead. Cardinal Cardinal Martini.
Right. Instead, you have that nice American bishop explaining that it was the children's fault for seducing their
He says that the children
well-meaning
seduced the
clergy.
priests. Who was that, Susan? That's some guy. He did say that.
Yeah, he did. I can't read. It was some mucky muck on the East Coast, I believe. But I can't
I'm
remember
thinking
who.
too. I'm thinking in New York, but I mean it wasn't Dolan, but it was somebody high up who said, these young boys
Were seductive.
Do you believe it? Wow. Have you heard about the scientific experiment in which thousands of ants are going to be fitted with radio receivers?
Very little ones.
Can you imagine? How would you even attach a radio receiver to an ant? And wouldn't it burden the ant? Of course, ants are famously strong.
Maybe you just put a crumb on top of it and have them push it around.
They're putting them, they want to see, this way they'll be able to track individual ants and see where they go and what they're doing and blah, blah, blah. And I guess they're hoping to what? Figure out how the hell these ants do it. Do the amazing things they do. So the receivers act like a barcode to mark each individual ant. And I guess what they're interested in is they say a single ant is not particularly clever, but a bunch of ants together provide an extraordinarily elaborate and effective system. Yeah. And I guess they're thinking, you could maybe we could learn something. I'm sure we could. And he says the way the ants use their network has important implications for how they interact with their environment, and the way information is passed through the network may even have implications for our telecommunications networks. I've often thought, looking at nature, that, I think we got a lot to learn from the way nature is organized, right? And how some of these amazing animals do what they do, these insects. I'm just fascinated by them. Fascinated. I just don't want them crawling up my leg. All right, Suze. That's it.
We're done?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Feels like Monday, but it ain't, right?
No, it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, and that means that...
we're done. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye. Can't get away fast enough. Go ahead. Goodbye. And it means that tomorrow's Wednesday, and that would mean Christopher Potter will be coming in. Always fun. I imagine we'll talk a lot more politics because I'll dutifully try to watch much of the convention tonight, especially this Hispanic keynoter who can't be any worse than than Christie. Can't be any worse than Christie. Oh, it certainly can't be any worse than Clint. And by the way, what was Ruth Ann Baker thinking when she wrote this piece in Sunday's paper, actually defending Eastwood's speech as somehow what? Brilliant? I mean, Ruth Ann, come on. Really? Jeez. I mean, I know I was drinking heavily watching the Republican convention because it's the only way I can do it. But Ruth Ann, I don't know what you were. You were drinking something more potent than me if you thought that speech was a good speech. A brilliant speech, no doubt. All right, I gotta go. Talk at you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.